Hey everybody, welcome back to Whiskey Outpost. You know what we're doing today, hun?
I'm drinking bourbon cream. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's a really good start. Today we're going to talk about what is bourbon and what is whiskey. Hey everybody, welcome back to Whiskey Outpost. Today we're going to answer one of the most pressing questions we get, and that's what's the difference between bourbon and whiskey? Now, to start off to show you, I have one bourbon and I have one whiskey. You can clearly tell the difference, right? No, they're pretty much exactly the same, at least in this case, color wise, viscosity wise. And that's because there's a lot of similarities between the two. See, I'm going to screw this up. I know I'm going to screw this up, but every bourbon is whiskey, but not every whiskey is bourbon because the rules around bourbon are a lot stricter than the rules around whiskey. So, do you know what the difference is?
I assume that bourbon has to be aged longer or in a certain barrel or
Yeah,
with a
you'd be
certain
surprised.
water.
And I'm actually pulling this up because I'll screw this up if I don't actually have a cheat sheet here in front of me. But there are 5 rules of bourbon. They are one, and I know it's embarrassing that a whiskey outpost guy needs to look up the rules of bourbon. Make fun of me in the comments.
He's old. He just needs to remember some things.
Why do I have to show? Okay. So the 5 rules of bourbon. The mash bill has to be at least 51% corn. So the recipe, so all whiskeys are fermented grain. When it comes to bourbon, it has to be 51% corn. There can be other things
Okay.
too, but yeah, it has to be at least 51%. And that's why bourbon is so much sweeter than a lot of your whiskeys. It's got a little more corn in
Corn
it.
is sweet.
This has to be aged for at least 2 years straight.
Okay.
The distillation proof, so when they take it out of the still, it can't be any more than 160. It has to be barreled at no more than 125 proof. My understanding is that's actually changed over time. It used to be 115, now it's 125. See, I remember stuff. And it has to be bottled at no less than 80 proof. So all of that is, so that makes it bourbon, right? And so that produces something that has more consistent qualities of color and sweetness and that kind of thing. Whereas whiskey really is any fermented grain bill. So tequila would be fermented agave. Your whiskeys, your bourbons are going to be fermented
Right.
grain. Yeah, right.
Wheat.
Barley, wheat,
Barley.
corn. Yeah, those are the 4 big ones.
What about hops? I know that makes beer.
Yeah, it
Can you make
does.
whiskey out of hops?
You want to try it? Don't. I mean, we'll find a. We can look. I don't know. It's actually illegal for us to make whiskey, isn't it? Would have been a
Yes,
great
it is.
experiment otherwise. Not in Missouri, apparently. 200 gallons you can distill for personal
That's a
use.
lot of whiskey.
Super drunk if we'd done that. But anyway, that's really the biggest difference. Is whiskey can be really anything as it is a fermented grain mash. Bourbon then starts to add in extra rules. Now, as a bonus for this, I want to throw in what is Tennessee whiskey because that's another categorization. Like if Jim Beam, they say it's Tennessee whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
You know what Tennessee whiskey the rules for it are, and I definitely had to look this up.
No.
Okay, cool.
So does that mean Kentucky bourbon is different too?
Well, no. Bourbon can be made anywhere. As far as I know, anything that makes Kentucky, it's
Okay.
just because that's where bourbon is mainly produced.
So what is Tennessee whiskey?
Tennessee whiskey has to be made in Tennessee. Now there was
Surprising.
true. So there was an episode of Moonshiners where they made Tennessee whiskey using Tennessee water. Like they got the water from Tennessee, but I think they actually
Right.
went to like North Carolina, right, to make it. You lied to us, Mark and Digger. At least according to
I still love you, Mark and
mintjuleptours.com.
Digger.
You're still cool. Yeah. Number one in our hearts. We just can't trust you. No, I don't know. Tennessee whiskey also has to be 51% corn.
Mm-hmm.
Distilled at no higher than 160 proof, excuse me. Barreled at no more than 125 proof. And has to be put into a new charred oak barrel. And one of these days, we're going to sip some whiskey, talk about. I am very worried about the rules around new charred oak barrels because we're running out of oak. But a lot of similarities between a Tennessee whiskey and a bourbon. And in fact, when shipped internationally, a lot of times Tennessee whiskey is called Tennessee bourbon. Tennessee whiskey producers are fighting that. The other thing is Tennessee whiskey has to be made through the Lincoln County process, which is filtering it through charcoal. Named after Lincoln County, where Jack Daniels, was originally produced.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has to be straight whiskey as well, which is another designation. But really, that's it.
I
So
just think it'd be fun to go there. It seems like there's a whole lot of history.
a whole lot of history.
Whole
And
lot of
actually, I'm going to guest host. I've guest hosted on her show already, talking about E.H. Taylor. We're going to do another one where we'll talk about Uncle Nearest and his contributions to the world of whiskey. But we'll talk about that some other time.
Mhm.
So again, the major difference is bourbon is more restrictive. So really, at the end of the day, it really comes down to that 51% corn that's going to make the biggest difference. But yeah, so the biggest thing is if you're looking at whiskey, like a lot of the stuff we have back there, that 12-foot beard I did, which had was just kind of there. It was whiskey because it wasn't aged that long, right?
It's
So
kind of there.
it was. I mean, it was good. It wasn't good. But yeah. Anyway, thanks. Give us a like or subscribe, and let us know if you've got any more questions. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.